Hello, everyone, and welcome to Go the Distance podcast series. My name is Sadie, and today we will be talking about mental health and wellness. Thank you so much for joining me. Today is my first podcast, and I am really excited to see where life takes me with this new journey. I welcome involvement from my supporters, so please leave comments and questions, and I will respond as soon as possible. The first thing I'm going to talk about is my own experience with anxiety and depression. I have also suffered from a few panic attacks. I will then talk about how I found ways to feel better and get through the feelings of being low and depressed, as well as how I overcame anxiety and the fears I have had. I will share a bit about my childhood so you have an understanding of my experiences. Growing up, I was always energetic and occasionally mischievous. I loved to play outside with bugs and dirt, and I had a vivid imagination. My parents weren't overly wealthy, and we didn't have cable TV, so we didn't watch a lot of television. We had those little bunny ears that you attach on the back of your TV, and you can pick up the closest stations. So we got 2 or 3 channels that came in clearly, and we were only allowed to watch an hour of TV per day. We also had a VHS player to watch movies, but that was only once in a while. To our benefit, the rest of the time was spent playing outside together. I have 3 siblings, and so there was no shortage of playmates. If you were mad at one of your siblings, you just go play with the other one and complain a little bit, and they'd be your friend for a while. And it goes back and forth. We also had other children in the neighborhood that we played with too. They would come over and play in our yard. We had a really big yard when I was a kid. Not only were my siblings my playmates, but my mom is super creative and she had activities planned for us all the time. So we'd sit up and do puzzles and coloring books, and she always had little crafts and things for us to do at the kitchen table. In the summers, we'd spend our time at the beach, swimming, making sandcastles, playing on the swings. For birthdays, we had potato sack races, obstacle courses, and all kinds of fun things to do. In the winter, we would build forts and snowmen, and then we'd come inside to warm up with a nice cup of hot chocolate. Being poor didn't mean we didn't have any fun, and my parents made sure of that. My parents bought us a battery-operated scooter and Jeep, as well as a little dirt bike to ride around the yard. I remember my dad being out in the shed fixing up the dirt bike to make sure everything was safe for us. He would put on a throttle lock so we couldn't go too fast and crash into things. And I always remember looking back and seeing him following me around the yard to keep an eye on me. We always found ways to keep busy and avoid boredom. Growing up, I never really noticed that our family had less money than most of the families in our town, and I guess it just didn't really matter much to me. As I got a bit older and I'd go to friends' houses, I'd notice that they had really nice furniture or really nice things, or that my friends got to go out shopping and spend money more often than me, and I still didn't really give it much thought. I guess it just didn't bother me at all. Fast forward to grade 7, and there's a new girl in my class. Let's call her Tara for the sake of confidentiality. And she looked really lonely, so I went and asked her if she wanted to hang out at recess, and we spent a few days together. After that, she made friends with the popular girls and ignored me. Later in the year, Tara had some really cool pants. When I saw them, I really wanted to get a pair for myself. I didn't ask my parents for much, but I did ask my mom if we could go shopping and find those pants. And she asked if I knew where Tara got them, and I didn't know. So the next day I asked her, and she told me. So on the weekend, my mom and I went shopping, and I got those pants, and I was so excited to have them. And her and I ended up wearing them on the same day. And so she got really upset with me and talked to me in the hallway with a really disgusted look on her face. I don't even remember what she said, but I know that I didn't want to wear those pants anymore, and if I did, it was on the weekends when I wouldn't run into her. I was constantly worrying that she would get mad at me if I did wear them again. I think she said something about, well, I had them first, or I don't know, something like that. This was the first time that I realized that other people can have a big influence on me and my thinking if I let them. And looking back, I'm thankful to have learned that lesson at such a young age. I'm going to read from a textbook that I used in college called Exploring Sociology, A Canadian Perspective by Bruce Ravelli and Michelle Weber. Mental illness, according to the Canadian Community Health Survey, CCHS, 4.5% of people interviewed reported having experienced symptoms of feelings associated with major depression. Also, 5% had experienced anxiety, and when substance dependence was included, 1 in 10 Canadians aged 15 and older had experienced mental problems at some time within 12 months of the interview. Statistics Canada 2003A. Table 15.1 indicates that women have higher rates of mood and anxiety disorders, when men are more than twice as likely to have a substance dependency. When mental disorders and substance dependence are combined, however, there's very little difference between women at 11.1% and men at 9.7%. Statistics Canada 2003X. The same study found that seniors aged 65 and older suffered much less than did youth aged 15 to 24, whereas 3% of seniors experienced mental disorder or substance abuse problems. About 18% of youth did, which supports the finding that seniors experience a higher level of well-being. As well, people in low-income groups are found to have higher rates of mental disorders than those in high-income groups. However, this relationship could be explained by the downward drift hypothesis, which asserts that because people with mental illness are unable to function properly, complete their education, or keep a job, they tend to drift into the low-income group. Worrying what other people think is such a heavy feeling. Hey, Auntie. I'm glad to be continuing as well. This is round 2, the same episode. So, because we're unable to be who we really are when our minds are so preoccupied with worry. And this is how, anxiety starts for me. I have a small worrisome thought that I get stuck on. You could even say I obsess on it, hashing out all these worst case scenarios. When I start thinking deeply about what might happen, I start to pull away from the social interactions that I'm a part of, and I become less present in the moment. The longer the anxiety goes on, the harder it is to even start a social interaction, and it becomes easier to say no to spending time with people I once really enjoyed being with. Once I had little to no reason to go out and be social, anxiety and depression kind of continued and blurred together. I became anxious because I was depressed, and I was depressed because I was anxious, and it just continued on like that. When I was in university, I would find myself sitting in front of my computer trying to be a good student and get my work done ahead of time, but I'd be triggered to think about all of these memories and thoughts that I would be staring unproductively at the screen, thinking about my past and my worries. When reading from textbooks, I would find myself reading the same line over and over and over again. And because halfway through, my inner thoughts would take over, and the words I was trying to read weren't even entering into my brain. Sometimes I would even turn pages of the book without actually reading a single word. Doctors are quick to prescribe medications for anxiety, and I knew this, so I avoided going to the doctor at all. I just kept telling myself I could handle it on my own. I turned to music and TV for entertainment and to distract myself. I would laugh while watching TV, so that became addicting in a way. It was a high feeling for me because instead of feeling sad or depressed, I was actually laughing and feeling good about something. Looking back, it's kind of like I forgot how to laugh. Sometimes being mindful of what type of media you expose yourself to is important, because when you're already feeling low and depressed, it's really easy to continue that cycle by supporting those negative thoughts with negative facts from the news, and then you just continue. You're like, well, the world's not good, so I'm just going to keep being sad and depressed. A common theme that I've found in my education and research about healthy development told me that positive behavior can be encouraged with positive attention. The news is a whole lot of negative attention about negative behaviors and situations. So to me, it seems like by supporting something like that, we're not encouraging healthy mindset. We're not focusing on positive things in order to create more positivity. Another common theme on a lot of fictional TV shows are negative interactions. So you have to turn to light or comedic shows to keep yourself out of that low, depressed state. Laughter really is the best medicine, and I would love to see doctors prescribing that more often than pills, because there's a chemical release in your brain when you laugh or smile, and it creates more happy thoughts and feelings as opposed to negative ones. So just by having a little show to laugh at or something like that, you're actually encouraging yourself to be happier. Another way I learned to laugh is at myself. If I make a mistake in what I'm saying or writing, which I do all the time, I laugh at myself. At first, people who don't know me well sort of look at me funny or wonder why I'm laughing. And if I explain myself, they'll usually start to laugh along with me. Laughing at myself is a much better feeling than being made fun of or worrying about being made fun of. So I'd much rather be the one to start the laughter when it's easier, just to be the one initiating it because it's about yourself. And then when someone else makes fun of another person, it's easy for the person being made fun of to get upset or to feel hurt. But if you can be the first one to laugh at yourself, then everyone else feels more welcome to laugh and enjoy the moment. The most recent example I can share with you is when a great friend of mine and I were walking to the mailbox. We found a coupon for dinner, and it said there was a meeting about how to save power on your next energy bill. And I responded by saying, "Is it the free steak that's dinner?" And she was like, "What are you talking about?" And I just burst out laughing, and I couldn't even control myself, and I couldn't tell her what I meant. And then finally, when I stopped laughing, I told her that what I meant to say was, "Is the dinner free or the meeting?" Anyways, we laughed all the way home. It was great. Most of the time, oh, I misread that. Most of what I've talked about in this segment is about my personal experience, and next time I'll be talking more about my experience and some other strategies that I have used to help curb my anxiety. And to be honest, I still have to work at it every single day to keep my mind healthy. Every day is a gift, and I choose to make the most of it every morning when I wake up. Something else that's really important that I learned about mental health is a thought is only a thought until you choose to act on it. So you could have a thought about I really hate that, whatever. And then if you choose not to give any action to that thought, it creates space in your mind for a new thought to come. So let's say you're struggling with being addicted to cigarettes and you're trying to quit. You might have a thought and you might think, oh, I'm going to go have a smoke, but you know you're trying to quit. So you just tell yourself no, and then you wait for the next thought. And if the next thought is like, oh, come on, it's just one cigarette, say, then you need to reassert yourself, say, no, I'm not having a cigarette. I am choosing to quit, and then wait for the next thought, and just keep doing that over and over and over again. You have to train your brain to be positive. It takes a lot of hard work, but it's definitely worth it. If you just keep not reacting to those thoughts, your brain will look for something else to give you to think about, and that's how you can start retraining how you think and changing your negative thinking into positive thinking. That's something that I've really done a lot of work on in the last probably 4 years. The other thing I was going to say is if you want to have positive thinking and positive thoughts, try to phrase things in a positive way. So instead of saying, well, I'm a teacher, so instead of saying don't run in the hallway, we try to say, please walk in the hallway. Instead of saying don't stand on the chair, we say put your feet on the floor. And so you can do that with all kinds of things. I always think of parenting examples, with kids and stuff, oh, don't yell, or don't do this, or don't do that. But instead of saying what you don't want, say what you do want, because you're a lot more likely to get what you want when you tell someone what you want as opposed to what you don't want, because what they're going to remember is what you don't want, and they have the choice to do what you don't want or to do something else, but you've already given them the option to do what you don't want because that's what's now in their brain. If you take away the negative, all they have is run in the hallway. So that is a lot more work for that person to think oh, don't run in the hallway. Okay, so then what do I need to do? Oh, I need to walk. But if you just tell them you need to walk in the hallway, they already know walk in the hallway. So that wraps it up for today. I'd like to shout out a big thank you to Lynn Burnett of Mile High Radio for making all of this possible. You guys have been a wonderful support so far, and the journey has only begun, so thank you very much. I'd also like to thank all of you for tuning in, and if you have any questions or comments, feel free to post them in the chat, and I will respond to them before I finish up the show. So yeah, thanks again for tuning in. I'll be live for 2 shows a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And you can follow me on social media to stay up to date. You can find this podcast at milehighradio.com/talk. And I have my social media links on there as well. So thanks again for joining in. Remember to go the distance, because life doesn't stand still.